The first time I applied for residency, I got 0 interviews. And one of the reasons why this happened was because my CV was flat. And like most people, I had a lot of experience, but the problem I had was how to translate my experience into something that was impressive on paper. Then I was able to learn from my mentors, my colleagues, and understand how to translate the CV. And that is what I'm going to be sharing in this video today. I'm going to be telling you exactly the things that you need to write that will translate what you did to what people actually care about on paper. I'm going to be going through the different sections of my CV that was able to get me from 0 to 24 interviews. Also, I'll tell you about the questions that was asked from my CV and how I answered them. And for those people who have a gap here, people who are old graduates, this is also for you. You are able to address this in your CV. So I'll encourage you guys to pause this video now, take out your CV, and let's get to it. We would go straight to the most important points, and that is your experience. Now, there are different types of experience. We have the volunteer experience, the work experience, and research experience. Now, if you look at my work experience, so I did everything in bullet points, and you should try and do that too. 1 line per bullet point. And the first line is to introduce what you did. So I started with saying, this was an inpatient and outpatient clinical setting with high patient load. I worked with a team of attendants, medical assistants, nurses, and other clinic staff. The next line, what did I do? And you want to use a verb. Try to take out the letter I as much as possible. So I said, evaluated about 20 patients daily. I took patient history, I carried out physical examination, and assisted in blood draws. I also performed IV cannulations, EKG, under the supervision of my attendants. So I tried to exhaustively denote what I did so that by the first 2 lines, this person already has an idea of what this rotation is about. But one of the things that you need to understand is that in this single line, you have to add a verb that shows your action, and you have to add a number, about 20 patients daily. Try not to just say, I saw a lot of patients who had hypertension. Give them a number, an approximate number. And if you don't have that number, sit down and think about it. You can say about or approximately. It doesn't have to be specific, but try to add a number. That carries more weight by far. And another thing is you want to show one of your strengths. This next line, it says performed data entry of patients using Epic EMR. And what I'm trying to communicate here is that I've been able to learn the EMR, which is, it's a huge quality that program look for in candidates. So if you are able to chime in these qualities strategically, that will quickly tell the person that, oh, this person is seasoned, they have done a lot of stuff, and they also have ability to use the EMR. That is very, very attractive for programs. And then finally, in your last line, you want to talk about what you learned from this rotation. Appreciated and contrasted the difference between healthcare delivery in the United States to my home country. Now, this is important for many reasons because it may come up in your interviews. In my interview, this came up like 4 times. They were asking me, so can you now tell me what the difference between healthcare delivery in the US to how it is delivered in your home country? For those of you who are IMGs, for those of you who are coming from outside the country, you probably will get the question. And how I answered it was, my country, there's less emphasis on insurance, so people have to pay out of pocket. So the care that the patient gets is determined usually by how much they can afford, so that our practice is personalized to a patient. I may prioritize doing a CBC before other tests just because I think that the problem is anemia. So I don't go down pursuing other tests because I know that the patient may not be able to afford it. And that reply actually blew their minds away. So that's one of the things you should note down. Okay. Second work experience. This is a 300-bed inpatient facility in the heart of Atlanta. I hope you're following now, right? So that's the introduction. What did I do? I observed physicians involved in the care of patients in the ICU, in the ER, and inpatient setting. I took a night float with a team of highly motivated attendants and nurses, and I learned the importance and the skill addressing sensitive issues such as code status, terminal diagnosis, and hospice care. If you look at this experience, it wasn't a lot of words. It was just 4 bullet points. Not a lot, but the idea is to have them know that it was multi-dimensional. So it was in the ICU, it was on the floor, and I got to see a host or multitude of things that I learned. But the point is, you want to have them know that your experience, that you have a good layer around the things you want to apply. For me, I was applying to internal medicine, so I wanted to give them a multitude of layers of experience so that they understand, oh, this person has seen the ED, hospice care patient, has seen the ICU. That's something that you can talk about during your interviews because they may ask you. Don't forget, you also want to quantify the size of the hospital. I said 300-bed facility. So that's what you want to do. You want to quantify your hospital. If you like contents like this, be sure to subscribe. In my future video, I talk about how to accelerate writing your personal statement and your CV in the shortest possible time. I also did virtual rotation, and this was how I represented my virtual experience on my CV. This was a virtual/telehealth clinical experience. The attending gave me the opportunity to interact with a variety of patients. I was involved in history taking and patient counseling under supervision, and I presented my findings to the attending. I gave give weekly oral presentations during clinical meetings, and the attending physician delivered weekly didactic lecture. What I'm trying to do here is, first of all, I'm trying to clarify to make sure that, okay, I want to make sure everybody knows that this is virtual. And the reason for this is because I don't want people asking me on interview day about my experience, thinking I was in person when it wasn't. Second thing is, you want to show how much interaction you had with patients. I didn't see a lot of patients, so I couldn't put the number. I just let that slide because I didn't have a good number. But if you have a good number, you should definitely add numbers. There's something I didn't include, and that is showing leadership in what you did. Just to ask a question, those of you who are struggling with your CV, what specific sections of your CV are you currently struggling with? Leave a comment in the comment section. Anytime you have an opportunity to demonstrate leadership, make sure you do that. And let me show you an example of that. Taught medical students during their clerkship. Teaching medical students, that's a good characteristics to have. Another example, conducted daily teaching sessions with interns, third and fourth year medical students during their clerkship. I gauged their performance and provided feedback, evaluation, and assessment. This is the quality of a leader. You want to try and put this in your CV as much as you did. It also tells program directors, tells faculty that this person can work with other people. So automatically, it's 2 for 1. They trust your competence, but they also trust your ability to relate with other people. Your interpersonal skill seems to be comes off as really good. Now, next experience, one of the most important experience, and that, my friends, is the volunteering experience. And why is this part important? It's important because, one, programs actually from time to time have volunteering service that they do, and then two, volunteering is something you do for free. So it tells us what you are likely to do when you have a choice. So you can demonstrate your love, or when we see that you don't have as much volunteering, kind of have an idea that maybe you're not into this specialty as much. Because volunteering is free, it tells us what you will likely do if you had a choice. Now, let's go. My state organized the 20th National Sport Festival, which had in attendance athletes across the country. I volunteered to be part of the medical team, which was composed of attendants, medical officers, paramedics, and nurses, and we cared for over 1,000 athletes. I have added a number now, so you can see that regardless of what it is, put a number. Don't miss this out. I made this mistake. Now the next line, what did we do? See, it follows the same pattern. We received the athletes, we educated and ensured compliance with the anti-COVID behavior. Then what did I learn? I learned to alleviate, reassure, enlighten, and interact calmly with angry and frustrated athletes and educate them about their proposed management plan. And this came up. They'll ask you, so tell me a little bit about this experience that you had. Well, we had a lot of athletes who came down with COVID down the road, and we had to kind of, we're really sorry, we cannot have you continue participating in this game. It's not safe for you, it's not safe for the team. Basically, they were pretty angry, and we had to deal with that. But that in itself is an experience. I'm communicating to the attendants, I'm communicating to the program director that I have been in a situation where I had to de-escalate patients' aggressive behavior. Now let's talk about research. When I was interviewing, programs asked me straight up, tell me about this XYZ research. They specified research, so they'll pick up a particular research and say, tell me about this, I'm interested in this. So when writing down your research experience and your research in your CV, you have to be very cognizant of the fact that anything you put down in your CV is fair game. If you can't talk about it for 5 minutes, don't put it on your CV. This was my role, I was a medical student, and this was my supervising attending. And what did I do? Formed a 5-man team, again, we're giving numbers, and developed a research topic that could benefit our immediate university environment. Under the supervision of the attending, we drafted questionnaires and distributed them amongst 340 university students. Now, see, if you don't have this number, you should say approximately, about. Very important. Let them understand the effort you put. So if I said amongst university students, it's very unclear what I have done. Was it 5? Was it 10? Was it 100? We don't know. So we don't take it as seriously as when you put 340. So that's what you want to do. Then this line, you see that I'm showing some skills. I'm saying actively participated in data analysis with SPSS, introduction and referencing of the research work. So I'm showing what I did. Right? This is good strength. I then said that the article was published in my medical school's library journal. Automatically, they kind of know that, this person has been active in research even before they graduated medical school. So that's very attractive. Now, let's talk about the publication. Now, I'm not going to bore you with so many details of the publication, but your publications have already been published. You want to put them in your peer-reviewed journal articles. The ones that are being submitted, you want to put them under the submitted section. As you can see, what I did personally was I took advantage of this oral section. Most people don't have a lot of publication. What I will encourage you to do is take advantage of the oral presentation portion. Do your best to recall all your presentation you've given, even the ones that you gave during medical school. Put as much as you can remember, okay? They have to be accurate and you have to be able to talk about them, but do not hold back. Put as much as you can. This is what I did. As you can see, there's a lot of, my name. And always, of course, always focus on first author. Always focus on first author. I understand that there's been a lot of changes to the hobbies and interests section, but you can still use the same idea. The idea is to use the hobbies and interests to show yourself as a person who is intelligent, who has interpersonal skills. Because like I said, programs are looking for somebody who is an overall good person. They're not looking for someone who only scored 270 but has nothing else. As a chief resident, during my residency, I know that a lot of people who have good scores are terrible to work with. So being a 260 candidate doesn't mean anything. People who score okay, even below okay, and are able to work with other people are much better than any other thing else. So concentrate on making your CV personable, and that is how you try to do that, especially in the hobbies and interests section. First thing I said, weightlifting. I kind of added a reason for that. I said this is a great coping mechanism for me. It helps me engage in healthy exercise while building my endurance and to distress. People say traveling, but you just don't say I like to travel and then stop. No, I said traveling. I relish exploring new places and learning about their culture, and most importantly their cuisine. I have been to 27 states within Nigeria and traveled to Ghana, Togo, Kenya and the United States. Not only are you talking about it, you are showing that you've actually truly done this. So I got this question on LinkedIn, and the question was asked by Mohammed. Thank you, Mohammed. If you have more than 3 months of USC, how do you go about doing this? And if we don't add them, then does that create a gap? Now, this is a very important question. A couple of ways you could do this. The first one is put some of the experience in your work experience and put the others in your volunteer section. Another way to go about it is to combine 2 or more experience and have the names of the attendants spelled out. Then you also mention that this was a combined rotation in X place and Y place, and you lump it up, giving them specific numbers and outcomes and the things that you learned and everything that you experienced, but make it very clear that this is 2 experiences, and then you can have that time elongated. For example, if you did 2 months here and 3 months here, that's a 5-month rotation, right? So you could combine it into one, but specifically note the attendants you work with separately. And another question was asked by Razia. The question was about how to address gaps for old IMGs. I think the first question is, what is a gap year? Because a gap year is when you take time off and you are not doing anything that is clinically relevant. And most people have this problem. They think that a gap year is when you are out of school 3-4 years and applying for USMLE, but that is incorrect. A gap year is when you take off time without clinical work. So in that year, you don't have any clinical input that you're doing. This is a gap year. And most people, very few people have true gap years. When you have a whole year that you don't do anything, most people don't have that. If you've been working in any capacity, even if it was twice a week, or even if you were doing virtual visits, in any form of clinical encounter, is not a gap year. Because when I applied for residency, I was 5 years out. And in that time, I was, having encounters with patients. I wasn't a fresh graduate. That is actually a strength. And that is going to come up in your interviews. They're going to find out what you've been doing in the last 5 years. So that is not a gap year. It is the time when you were refining your clinical skill, honing your leadership skills. Now, for people who had to take time off for a specific reason, that is completely understandable. As long as you are able to reflect that you came back from your gap year and you were able to hit the ground running, you leave that year blank. You don't have to put anything that year. Okay, now you may want to explain the gap year in your personal statement, but for the most part, if you have a gap year, when you have that gap year, you just come back and you continue your experiences, right? And then explain the gap year in your personal statement. There's no need to take time explaining a gap year in your CV. Do that in your personal statement. Okay, and when you do that, you have to show that what you learned and how that has helped you grow as a person. Check out my personal statement videos. You should have a guide for that. By using this approach, I'm confident that you should be able to get your CV to a place where every single program director is marveled at of your CV. I put a link to the exact CV. You can click and download that for free. And for those of you who are stuck writing personal statements, you should check out my video on personal statement. That will give you an idea. I put out word for word the exact personal statement that I use to get 24 interviews. Those of you who are struggling with your CV, what specific sections of your CV are you currently struggling with? Leave a comment in the comment section.